Hello everyone, in this video I'll be walking you through how to set up a chart of accounts specifically for builders in QuickBooks Online. This will allow you to track job profitability, understand your numbers, and build a system that scales. Firstly, I want you to think of your chart of accounts as the foundation for your financial operating system. Everything else, job costing, project profitability, financial reporting, builds on top of it. So this is really important. If your foundation is wrong, the rest of the system won't work properly. So let's get started. Construction businesses are unique because essentially it's a business within a business. First, you have your overall company, your business entity. Then within that, at its core, you have your projects. These are the homes you're building, flipping, or remodeling. Without this, there is no business. So these projects are like mini businesses themselves. And your accounting system needs to be able to capture both these layers. On one side, you have your overhead expenses, things like rent for your office space, software, marketing, office expenses. These are costs that keep the business running, but they're not tied to specific jobs. On the other hand, you have project costs. These are costs that go directly into building, remodeling, or fixing the house. And we divide these across labor, materials, and subs. These show up under cost of goods sold, also known as COGS. Your chart of accounts need to clearly separate these two sides, overhead expenses versus cost of goods sold. When it comes on to COGS, we need to get a bit more detail so that we understand even beyond the categories of labor, subs, and materials, how money is flowing through each phase of our project. We want to be able to understand how much we spent on labor, plumbing, electrical, HVAC, roofing. This allows us to understand where money is actually being spent on the different phases through our projects. In order to capture that level of detail, here's how I'd advise you to set this up. First, parent account, cost of goods sold. Then sub-accounts, labor, subs, and materials. Then, in order to capture trade level information, we're going to use the service items to represent specific trades like plumbing, electrical, foundation. This structure allows the system to track costs by trade while keeping your financial statements organized. Now, here's a mistake I see all the time. Builders creating new accounts for each job. So for instance, we have cedar materials, oak materials, and at first it feels logical, right? You're able to make some inference. Oh, we spent 70K on materials for cedar. We spent 31K on materials for oak. But over time, as you add more and more projects to this, you're essentially lengthening the P&L and rendering it useless because it's extremely difficult to interpret something that is 50 pages long. And it's really disheartening because you spent all this time categorizing these transactions in hopes of having something useful and being able to understand your business, but you just end up with a messy report. So this is what I want you to do. Think wide instead of long. Keep your chart of accounts generic and then create separation using projects. So instead of oak materials, cedar materials, maple materials, just have materials and then QuickBooks separate the costs by project horizontally. This P&L is much easier to read because we're going across instead of downwards. This keeps your reports clean while still letting you analyze individual jobs. The projects feature is a great tool to help with that horizontal separation, and it also gives you this overview so that you're able to see your numbers at a glance. You're able to see your project income, cost of goods sold across labor, materials, and sub, and your project profit. So instead of cluttering your chart of accounts, let projects do the work for you. In order to build out this system, here's how you're going to categorize your expenses. First, customer or project. In this case, that's Daniel Smith for 456 Oak, and that's a custom build. Then, or service item, and in this case, that's electrical subcontractor. Lastly, or vendor or payee, which is prime electrical contractors. So, project, service item, vendor. So to round things out, here's how the system connects. We have projects, those sit at the top. Then inside projects, we track costs through service items. These service items then map onto sub-accounts, and these sub-accounts roll into our parent account, cost of goods sold. This structure allows you to see total cost per project, cost by trade, and profitability per job. The goal of a well-designed chart of accounts is simple. It should allow you to understand job profitability, track cost trends, maintain clean financial statements, and make tax prep easier. As you can see, how you set up your chart of accounts is really important. If you want a full walkthrough tutorial of how to set this up in QuickBooks Online, check out my trade level job costing video linked down below. I hope you found this useful. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.